darkness amplifies the chill of the falling snow. A shrill scream pierces the cold as we look upon the Cobblepot household. The parents, horrified by their disfigured child's appearance and behavior, threw him and his carriage into the Gotham River. The carriage floated down the storm drain and ended up in Arctic World, part of the old Gotham Zoo. There, it was carried off into the darkness by huge emperor penguins. "33 years later. Christmas is approaching in Gotham City, but repeated sightings of a strange penguin creature have been nagging the metropolis of late. The mayor is addressing the crowd in Gotham Plaza, completely unaware of a huge red gift box that is slowly moving towards the crowd. The box bursts open, and weird members of the Red Triangle Circus gang careen through the terrified masses. Gotham City has a hero who is aware of all evil doings in Gotham City. A hero that bears strength and intelligence under his dark mask. He is the mysterious Batman. He bravely stands up against all evil. The fragile peace that exists in Gotham City is reinforced by his presence. However, there is a new player in town, an adversary that creates chaos in Gotham City. She used to be the quiet secretary of Max Schreck, a powerful businessman. Frustrated by the villainous Schreck, she has transformed into Catwoman. She prowls the streets in search of Batman. But will she help Batman? Or join with the Penguin and try to destroy him? God, that atmospheric song is incredible. Hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Play Batman Returns. Starting off, we're actually going to go into the options and take a look at the difficulties. We've got easy, normal, hard, special, and mania. Like most beat-em-ups, this more or less just influences the ending image you get. I'm going on mania mode. I don't recommend going on mania mode, and if you do, start with the highest amount of lives, because this game can be difficult. Scene 1. Ambush in Gotham Plaza. So as I mentioned starting off, this game is a beat-em-up. Very similar to Final Fight, actually. You move towards enemies, you punch them, you got your basic combo. However, if you get too close to an enemy, you can actually pick them, grapple them, and then either throw them to the ground, behind you for another kind of throw, technically. If there's a background, you can throw them into that for extra damage. If you guard with the L and R button, or R button rather, and press the attack button, you throw a
capsule, which more or less is a screen nuke. Any standard enemies will get killed by it. Bosses will just take decent damage. That's me accidentally pausing, trying to swap my sub-weapon, because this game actually has sub-weapons. You got the grappling hook, which allows you to do more or less a flying kick. However, you can easily be knocked out of it. For the most part, I'm going to be using the batarangs, because I find them pretty useful for stunning enemies, and it'll even kill some weaker enemies, like these bikers. You also have a special attack that, with my control settings, is mapped to the A button. That works a lot like the special attacks in the Streets of Rage games, where if you press, and in this case, my case is the A button, Batman kind of swirls his cape around, and it'll knock any enemy that's near you away from you, like so. However, using it costs some health, so use it only when you're very desperate. I also admit you'll see me at times actually pressing the wrong button, like you'll see me pause a couple times early on in the playthrough to try and swap myself weapons in the case I want to use the grappling hook for some reason. And you'll also see me try to press the batarang button, but accidentally hit the special attack button, so I might lose some health like that. You can also obviously do some jump attacks, but honestly, there's not much you can really say about a beat-em-up's mechanics in terms of how it works. Because for the most part, it's fairly standard, like during your throws, you have some amount of invincibility frames. Otherwise, you're basically all good. It comes down to a game of trying to get close to an enemy to punch them before you get punched. Though it is important to know that, like some other beat-em-ups, enemy attacks can also hurt other enemies, in some instances. Explosives like that bazooka, dynamite that can be thrown by later thin clowns, so on and so forth, those can hurt other enemies too. It depends on the enemy, of course, but that is something that is worth noting. Your test tubes do get replenished between stages, so feel free to use them if you're in a really desperate spot. But I actually prefer to use them usually on boss fights, and especially if there's a move I want to dodge very easily, because the entire time the test tube animation's going on, you're immune to damage. Now, in terms of my history with Batman Returns, I saw the movie, I was maybe 7 or 8 at the time, so that was probably like 2004, 2005, somewhere in that range. And I thought it was pretty good. I didn't think it was as good as 1989, and because I was a kid, I liked Batman Forever more even. But going back, honestly, out of the pre-Christian Bale Batman films, it's probably my favorite, because I admit it gets risky at times because the amount of sex jokes in there, and some of the writing is just kind of strange. Like, why the hell would Max Schreck, played by Christopher Walken, want the Penguin to be mayor? That's just I see the seedings of a plan there, but it kind of comes out of nowhere in some regards. But at the same time, the film, I love how it's not afraid to kind of be disgusting in some ways. Mind you, it also helps with the casting, because Danny DeVito as the Penguin is just so perfect. But in terms of my experience with Batman Returns, the game, this is actually a game I was introduced to several years after seeing the movie. In fact, this was during my early emulator days that I first played this. And I liked it. I liked it most when I was at a lower difficulty, admittedly. In fact, I will say right now, and I'll probably repeat this a few times throughout the LP, as short as it's gonna be, that the best way to play this game is on normal or hard mode. Nothing easy is too easy, but special and above are ugh. But I played it because I saw it look nice, and I liked it. But now we're in a different section, because this game actually has 2 different kind of combat sections. There is the 3D-like section that we were in earlier, where you actually have some vertical movement. But then we got 2D sections where we're completely locked into a horizontal plane. You also don't have your punches anymore. You're just throwing batarangs that can suddenly hurt people more often now. Unlike the beat-em-ups, your strategy here is actually to stay away from, as far away from things as possible, just because the batarangs will go all the way across the screen, and with the exceptions to the fat clowns and the tall clowns and boss fights, will generally one-shot things. Also, this game's soundtrack is amazing. A lot of the music is directly from the movie, and they just adapted it onto the Super Nintendo sound chip, and it sounds incredible, especially the adaptation of the main theme by Danny Elfman. But now it's time for the stun gun clown. You might notice his health bar is green. Like a lot of other beat-em-ups, if they have higher than the standard health bar, they get an invisible health bar that's just of solid color. In this case, the green is the second health bar. I'd say he usually has about 1.5 bars to start off with. Also, if it's not entirely obvious, when you die in this game, you just get started right back where you were in the action. You just get some invincibility frames. Game overs, though, send you back to the previous checkpoint, which is usually between sections. Also, the stun gun clown really likes to roll around and try to zap you. Even on Mania mode, he's a pretty easy boss fight. Also, since I got one in there because I just realized we're at 63,000 points, you get an extra life every 50,000. Wow, the Batman? Or is it just Batman? The cowering lady saved by Batman was Selina Kyle, lowly secretary to Max Schreck, the most powerful businessman in Gotham City. A mysterious creature known only as the Penguin has been spotted in Gotham's sewers. He allies with Max Schreck to destroy the mayor's reputation, allowing himself to become the new mayor of Gotham City. Burn, baby, burn! Scene 2. Battle in the streets of Gotham City. You know, in a way, I think this game didn't need the cutscenes, but I actually like that they at least tried to put the movie plot in there. Because compared to some other movie-based games where they more or less just make a game about the concept and pay no attention, or at least very little attention to the actual movie's plot, they actually try to be very accurate here, and I have to admire their efforts there. Though, mind you, it helps that the game is good to begin with, because we're all familiar with movie licensed games before they kind of disappeared after like the Iron Man 2 game. There were a couple like on the Wii for shovelware's sake, like I recall Wreck-It Ralph one in particular being ugh. But for the most part, they kind of disappeared for a while, and I'm kind of glad. But in this case, comic book licensed games are probably some of the weirder ones because they have some of the highest potential. But then they end up being Superman 64's, Aquaman, I forget the name of that Aquaman game even, the Batman Forever game on Super Nintendo, the Batman and Robin video game on PlayStation, which is way too long for its own good, by the way. I'm just glad that some good games came out of things like this, though. I'm trying to think, actually, what is my favorite licensed game? The Robots game, I used to really like that. Same with the Unfortunate Events game on PC, way back when, that was based off the movie with Jim Carrey as Olaf. I do love the Hook game on Super Nintendo, not so much the Game Boy Color NES games. Those are, not the best. Now, if there is one thing I do have to give this game some kind of shit for, is that I think the enemy variety is a bit low, because let me think about this. Compared to, well, mind you, now I think about it, this is more of a beat 'em up thing in general, especially at the time. They didn't need that many enemies. They just wanted you to beat the shit out of things. Because I think in this game there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 7 enemy types at most, barring boss fights. And I'm not counting the, because there's technically like 3 different kinds of the thin clowns. There's those that use bowling pins, those that just use themselves, and the ones that carry dynamite. I'm counting those as one variety of enemy that just have slightly different animations. I do love details like this, though, where they just have enemies randomly sitting in the background. I don't know why, but I find that kind of charming. It is weird, though, because in a way, I consider this a sequel to the Sunsoft Batman game on the NES, but it's really not. It's an adaptation of the film that the original game was an adaptation to. Because that Batman game actually got a different sequel that was okay. It wasn't great, it wasn't horrible, but it certainly had some questionable decisions. Throughout the level, you will see me occasionally pick up Batman emblems being carried by bats. Those are just points. The color depends on the points themselves. It's plain and simple there. The more important thing to look out for is if a bat is carrying a heart, because that is health. And trust me, especially on Mania mode, you're going to be going through health like nothing else. I think this is one of those games that doesn't change the enemy layouts depending on your difficulty. Every enemy, I think, is always going to be there no matter what. What I think changes is, well, no, the damage you take definitely changes. There's no think to that. It definitely gets higher the higher the difficulty is. But I think the enemies also just get outright more aggressive, depending on the difficulty. They might get more health. Actually, no, I think they outright do, because I'm thinking of Stage 5 in particular. I think they also get a little more health themselves. But as long as you're playing well, that doesn't really matter too much. It's not getting hit that you should really worry about. Now, this particular side-scrolling section allows me to go into something I wasn't able to in the last one. You actually can still use your grappling hook while in these sections with the X button. However, unlike the main sections where it acts as a flying kick, it acts as an actual grappling hook. If it attaches to something above you, you will get pulled up and you will swing forward a little bit. And you need to do that for minor platforming sections, otherwise you're just gonna either take damage or die. The physics of it can be a bit weird to get used to, and sometimes the things they have you dodge around are a bit hard to read, to say the least, but I'm not sure if that depends on difficulty, because I'm more talking about in particular later on in this on fire section. There's fire falling from the ceiling here. I think the way they want you to dodge it is to do a short hop through it just by tapping the jump button, but I can never get through those things without getting hit. Either way, this is the thing, that's the grappling hook in action. I should note actually I forgot to mention this when I was talking about it. You actually need to press the button twice. Once is to shoot the grappling hook out, and the other is to have it pull you forward. Which is actually pretty smart of them, but I think if you're already mid-air, you'll need to press it the once. Hence why I'm doing that. But yeah, I'm honestly uncertain how they want you to get through this without being damaged. It's, I would dare say, outright impossible for you to do that. But in the long run, this is one of those games that is pretty generous with its lives, even on Mania mode, because 50,000 points is very easy to reach to get a 1-up. In fact, I dare say it's easier on Mania mode, because I think you get more points that way. And here's the next enemy type, Sword Swallowers. They are, honestly, probably the most annoying standard enemy type. Just because they have a lot more range than they feel like they should, given their swords. Plus, they don't really have a tell for when they're about to swing their blade, which makes dodging them a bit of a trial. One thing I'm trying to remember if this game does is that I think it might change the items that you find throughout the stages depending on your difficulty. Like, I think some of the points are health items on lower difficulties, namely easy. The reason I say I think is because I haven't played easy in a long time. And even then, I say that, I also haven't played this game in a long time. I played this game standardly on normal or hard to begin with. But even then, the last time I did that was back when I was in high school, and it's been a while since then. Although this game already is a bit easier than you'd think despite the Mania thing, because it's very generous with its checkpoints. There's one every time there's basically an environment shift, or at least a fade to black. Or I guess it's more of a fade to Batman symbol because you fade through the white thing. And that checkpoint stays with you with a continue. You only get 3 continues in this game from my memory, though I think that might also depend on the difficulty. Don't quote me on that. And that is more than enough to beat the game. I'm kind of disappointed in myself in one way, though, because, well, I admit I die throughout the entire game. This playthrough's kind of front-loaded with deaths just because I was trying to get used to the game for once after so long. Admittedly, this is why I really should practice run more games I do, but And here's our first game over. I recall this game having a password segment of some point. Actually, wait, no. There is no password system. I'm thinking of Batman Returns for the NES, which was, I think, also still developed by Konami. And that's a game. I don't think it's as good as this one, but it's serviceable, I guess. That's the thing with NES licensed games in particular. You can't say they're great a lot of the time because they're really not. But compared to some of the other licensed games, I'm looking at you, LJN, they're passable as games. But yeah, as you can see, this game also uses, I guess I can call it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 logic, although I think this came out before TMNT 4, where the amount of lives you choose at the start of the game in the options menu is what sticks with you after a continue. So I still have 7 lives to start, even though I now have 6 because I died so quickly. this is one of those odd cases where the higher the difficulty is, the game itself doesn't actively get harder because of the way that just ups your damage. It almost feels like an artificial way to add difficulty because there's not more enemies. Enemies don't get more complex patterns. It's always the same game. It's just one of those simple damage raises. And higher difficulties are weird because I think higher damage should almost always be a thing with them. But I think there needs to be more to it. Like the way the Persona games do their difficulties, where the higher the difficulty, the more damage you take, the more HP enemies have, and the less money and experience points you get. That's a good way to do it, at least for an RPG in my eyes. But at the same time, given the complexity of this game, there isn't really much else they could do. Oh, gee, that sprite's really well animated in the background. I wonder if he's important, because he totally doesn't blend in. Yeah, that's death number 7? No. 9. For some reason, I almost thought I had the live set to 5 for some reason. My brain works well. Either way, time for our next boss fight, the Strong Man. I'm not sure what the T stands for. Probably... No, I can't think of what it stands for. His attacks are fairly predictable, although he can pull them out a bit quicker than you'd think at times. That might actually be a thing that depends on difficulty too. Maybe instead of being less aggressive, enemies are just faster. He generally just likes to try and punch directly into you, and if you're actually just below him, he can easily miss that. Though admittedly, I should note, when enemies attack straight forward, very often the hitbox does extend a bit lower, so you probably will get hit. Otherwise, he just kind of likes to meander around and punch you. In fact, outright, he might be the most blunt boss, because I think that might be the only attack he has from memory. He might have another one that he just rarely gets a chance to use, like I think he might have a dash attack of some kind. But in the long run, fairly easy boss fight. Don't get used to those, because some of the bosses in this game can be kind of an ordeal no matter what difficulty you're on. Though the higher damage they get with the higher the difficulty, it gets a bit worse. But that is stage 2. It's pretty straightforward. Mind you, it's a beat 'em up stage. They're generally straightforward. So let's see how the plot progresses. Batman's triumphant victory over the Red Triangle Circus Gang is short-lived as the Penguin appears to taunt Batman. You're not the mayor.
Things change. You don't really think you'll win, do you?
Things change. Meow. After destroying Shrek's department store, Catwoman escapes to the safety of a nearby rooftop. Okay, but with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2, we'll be going through the next couple of stages. See you guys then.